And good evening and welcome to Greater Somerville for June 19th, 2012. I'm Joe Lynch. My guests tonight are the co-editors of Somerville Scout, our city's only bi-monthly magazine. Founded in 2009, Scout has become a staple in every household, barber and coffee shop, and convenience store across the city and beyond. Some of you may remember one of my guests as the founder of the online news blog Post Somerville, and as the editor of a small local newspaper. My other guest is a grad student at Emerson College. How's that?
That's right.
How's that? And has contributed to such publications as Comcast Sportsnet, The Patch, among others. Hailing from Virginia, Tom Nash, to my left, your right, is known for his in-depth investigative reporting. As the man about town for all the best in local reporting, Adam Vacarro, on my extreme left, is looking forward to making his mark as the co-editor of Somerville Scout. It is my pleasure to welcome them both to the hot set here at Greater Somerville. But we're going to refer to them as Woodward and Bernstein from now on. So, you know, you brought up something that I usually do on the show, and I'm going to do it tonight. Tom Nash and Adam Vacarro are going to deliver tonight's weather, and they're going to deliver the forecast for tomorrow. So who wants to do tonight?
I'll do tonight.
All right. Here in lovely downtown Union Square.
So, since we did not get a call from Tom Champion about moving our cars, we must only assume it's a great time to get a beer in Union Square.
There you go.
It's slightly overcast, and
but getting a little humid out there.
Getting a little humid, good enough weather to be in a t-shirt.
So let's slide right into tomorrow.
Hot today, hot yesterday. Probably it'll be hot tomorrow.
We've been practicing, if you couldn't tell.
I think
we got some ideas.
I think you will do Holly Banks proud with that one, Adam. So we're going to keep it loose tonight.
She's a show woman at heart.
She does. And Holly Banks is the founder and publisher of Somerville Scout and a past guest here on Greater Somerville when she first founded the magazine.
Indeed, I watched the episode.
Yes.
Yeah? Well, it's mandatory for anybody who is employed by Somerville Scout. You get your own DVD issued by Holly.
That was part of the contract.
Yeah, that was part of the contract. That's right, Adam. See, you do read the fine print on things like that.
We do indeed.
So I'm glad you guys both could come down. I know you're holding down a couple of jobs each and, you know, working as co-editor of the Somerville Scout. But let me ask you right off the bat, does it surprise you the popularity of Somerville Scout?
When I moved to Somerville, which I'll say it to TV, wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
It was in September of last year.
He almost said Medford, so.
It was something I knew about pretty well. I knew that Scout was a publication I wanted to reach out to right away and try and work for. So to me, as somebody who's been in Boston for the Boston area rather for about 5 years and been in Somerville for less than one, that transition as a budding reporter meant reach out to Scout because it's a place that could use you, potentially, or a place that you could write for in Somerville. Whatever it was, I knew that it was somewhere to reach out to. So it doesn't surprise me too much to see that it is a fairly well-recognized publication.
And people look for it. They keep looking for it now.
Yeah, and I think the first reaction I had when I saw the first one in 2009 was, wow, this is really great. I hope there's another one. Because there was such you keep hearing about, print journalism is dead.
Right.
And here's this thing that shows up in your mailbox, and you're like, well, what's going on? I think the fact that it was able to thrive speaks to both Holly's determination and also the fact that people in Somerville get it, and they want to get something in their mailbox that explains to them what's going on in a way that maybe you wouldn't get in the media climate that we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, when somebody asked me about it one time, and I said, well, I think our habit, those of us who are readers of journalism or, any kind of media, our habit has always been, once you get the newspaper, you read it, and it goes in the recycle bin. Mm-hmm. Once you get a magazine, that tends to stay around for a lot longer than a newspaper does.
And it goes both ways there, Joe. I mean, like, as a reporter, we get 2 months to sit on a story
Right.
and concoct an idea, see what's going on, really do a lot of investigation, and it has to work in a way that's really complementary to a newspaper, a magazine does. I mean, we're not going to break much news, and they are. We're going to be able to sort of ruminate on it for a while and produce something that...
But you certainly, I mean, with both of you, because I read everything that both of you have, when you were doing post Somerville, and then Adam's reputation preceded him. I'll tell the story a little bit later in the show. But Adam professes to be new to the area, but I'll tell the story later. But I guess my point about a magazine that stays around, it also gives both of you the opportunity to do more in-depth story analysis than the reporters who are under deadline for a daily blog publishing
Right.
or weekly newspaper stuff.
Right.
And both of you... I'm sorry, go ahead, Adam.
As I was just going to say that Tom can probably address that really well as somebody who's written for the local media in a blog and newspaper format and now in a magazine format. So I was just going to say, go ahead.
Well, I mean, so,
He's good, because if anybody gets in trouble, it's going to be you.
probably.
Right.
The Journal and Patch, for example, they work so hard to, meet their quotas every day. And they are reporting on, sort of the up-to-the-minute news. And
Right.
that's something that everybody needs to be able to, people need to be able to wake up in the morning and say, well, is there construction going on Washington Street or something like that? What I really like about Scout is that we can just, as Adam was saying, just sit there and sort of go off. Almost, I guess at first they seem like tangents, like, why, certain, taking an issue
Yeah,
like
there's
this.
a communications director in the city that thinks both of you go off in tangents, but...
Well, possibly.
Don't say anything. He watches this show.
Yeah.
It's a very well-produced show, Joe.
And I think, tangents are the spice of life. I don't know. Like, what's the point of doing journalism if there aren't tangents that go beyond just, schools letting out early today?
Right.
We need to know what's going on, what's really going on in the city. What are the factors at play that come into the decision making of the people in power?
Right.
Who is saying they are in power, but maybe they aren't at all?
Good point.
Which is, I think,
Depends on who's controlling the media.
Yeah, and I think, I think we're very lucky to have someone like Holly who came in and said, you know what, maybe I didn't grow up here, maybe I don't know, like, all the important people to know in the city, but I want to put out a magazine. I had, a very limited, I was a 24-year-old like Adam. I'm a whole 26 now. I decided that I wanted to put out a publication.
I gotta reach a younger audience. I gotta start getting younger people in
Joe,
here.
the ratings for this episode are just going to throw your brain for...
So, at 24, I decided, well, I'm going to put out this website about Somerville, and nobody cared. I didn't start getting feedback on the reporting I was doing until this one got involved.
Right.
And all of a sudden it was like a huge problem. I think for the past year I had been writing about things like, firefighter hiring scandals. I worked with Muckrock to get the mayor's campaign finance donations put online. Nobody cared.
Right.
And now
right.
Scout, I think that's what has shown me that Scout shows up in everyone's mailbox.
That's the big thing, is the automatic large circulation.
Yeah.
I mean, we can boast the biggest circulation in Somerville because we force it on Somerville.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, when it's free, it's free.
Yeah. We won't let
It's
you
not only
cancel.
free, but it's delivered,
Right.
It shows up in your mailbox whether you want it or not. So.
Adam, excuse me for 1 minute, Tom. That's an excellent point about the difference between free publications, is that we have other free publications in the city, and we have other blogs, and we have other this and other that. Scout is the only thing that shows up in your mailbox on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it's in full color. And the textile part of it is more pleasing to people, I think, than
that old newsprint.
grubby
People are
newsprint.
just,
Yeah.
And not to
out.
mention, I just think looking at, I've been able to look at all the Scouts, and the design of it has gotten progressively more impressive.
Yeah, let's not leave Ilan. Ilan?
Oh,
I mean,
Elon,
he
yeah.
was. I mean, without
Ilan was the first editor that
Yeah,
Holly
and
brought in.
without
Yeah.
him, I mean, you know, Holly was he. I think it's fair to say she couldn't have done this without him.
Well, she says so much in the issue that was our first putting together. She wrote in a publisher's note to go with Alon's farewell. She wrote that so therefore I consider it public and move live with it. No, she wrote that because when she first heard from Alon that he was going to move on to a national magazine,
Right.
that you know, her first thought was maybe I won't do this anymore.
Right.
He obviously had just a huge impact on bringing the Scout from nothing to something, and yeah, it's certainly worth giving him.
The
his due
engines are
accolades
racing
here.
out
Yeah.
here in Union Square. You
Yeah.
guys don't have to go anywhere, right?
No, but does Vanity Fair have the number for the calling in?
They do.
Okay, good.
They do. Vanity Fair does. Yeah, and Boston Magazine. Everybody else has it, yeah. But Adam, you make a good point that, you know, Ilan and Holly, in the midst of the economic downturn, took the bull by the horn and said, you know what? We're going to launch a magazine, and if we sink, we sink. If we swim, we've fulfilled what we wanted to do, which is to launch a magazine. Because you know, if you did watch that show with Holly, I was amazed.
Yeah.
I said, "What made you do this
Yeah.
in 2009?" It was
Yeah.
right at the point where everything was tanking. You know,
Right.
who launches a magazine? You know,
There's a little bit of insanity.
she does
there.
deserve a lot of credit, but you know, I think, and I teased her when she told me that she was hiring both of you two. I said, "What's the matter? You don't want to get a 40-something-year-old? You're going to get two 20-something-year-olds to come in?"
Well, there's
But then again, you're both working at half price. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, there you go.
Half price is generous.
Yeah, she has insurance against one of
I
us
mean-
going,
Yeah, and I was doing this for free for a year,
Yeah.
and we had a wonderful revenue model of not even trying to make money.
Yeah.
So the fact that she goes out and is able to pull in it's not just
Advertisers,
about
yeah.
selling ads. I mean, people believe in her.
Right.
You're not just going to be able to. You can hoodwink someone once and say, "Oh, buy an ad in this magazine." I mean, we're 3 years in, and people are
Right.
repeat advertisers. People really actually believe in
Right.
what the magazine stands
Well,
for.
and let me do one thing. In full disclosure, you know, Holly and I have known each other since she launched the magazine, and the company that I work for also advertises in Somerville Scouts. So,
That's news
sure,
to
but
me.
Joe, I think that you might be an example of one of. So I haven't done the research here, but I've got to assume there's a few companies that have advertised in every issue of Scout.
yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
it's something that
And
those who stick
there
with
are
it-
companies, you know, I talk to Holly every now and then, and there are companies that are now just jumping on the bandwagon because they see the popularity of Scout. They know that it's not going to be going away next week.
Right.
They know that the editor means the editors or professionals rather than taking shots at people in
Right.
anonymous blogs or
Right.
anonymous columns.
Right.
You know, it's a professionally run magazine. You sure you guys don't have to go? There's an awful lot of engines going out here in Union
Well, I
Square.
haven't mentioned my alter ego as Batman. But,
Batman? Yeah.
And we were wondering if we were going to start getting parking tickets. Maybe instead they're just going to send the fire engines by whenever we're on.
You know, I would tell you, I think you guys need to lay off the parking tickets because the revenue is going down, and you know the look on the mayor's face when he sees the projections is that revenue is going down because people are now behaving themselves.
I'm going to guess that maybe it's going to be you're going to get fined if you don't mow your lawn enough.
You're already doing that, Tom. You don't have a lawn though, so don't worry
No,
about it.
I will never have a lawn.
There you go.
Not working as a journalist.
There you go. So let's.
You know, I'm
let's-
moving into Tom's apartment.
Excellent.
Tom's moving out. I'm going in.
There you go. I told you it would be an entertaining show tonight. Let's talk about some of the stories that you guys have done.
Sure.
Adam Vacarro, we'll start with you.
Okay.
Investigative reporting that you've done.
Well,
Because let's not just talk about the hard copy publication. You guys also do online
Sure.
stories on your web address is
SomervilleScout.com.
somervillescout.com because you have daily updates and you do.
Mostly, yeah.
Full disclosure again, I keep forgetting, Somerville Scout does carry Greater Somerville on their blog.
We do.
Yep.
Everybody does. We have
Yeah,
to.
I mean, that doesn't make
It's
us
just
special.
about the only show that's recorded down here at Scat TV anyway. So
It's, well,
What do you want to know specifically here, Joe? I mean, I would say that one thing that's very different than anything I've done is that I am getting 2 months to sit on a story and
Yeah.
file requests for information and have 15 interviews or 20 interviews for a story. And so, I mean,
but you also online you do quicker hit things like Hubway's coming to Somerville.
That's true.
We do.
Yep.
We interviewed you for a story about the Green Line coming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have a chance online to do things like, even just doing things like interviewing 4 or 5 different people and putting that video up. That's kind of other Somerville websites don't really have time to
Right.
do that.
Right.
And we'll always get scooped, but
Right.
we're hoping that we'll have that je ne sais quoi that will make people want to also seek us out online.
What
One
are you working on for an investigative story for our next publication? Don't give away too much, but
sure. I'll call it a in-depth history story of Assembly Square. Starting,
Assembly, yeah.
starting in. So we sort of build it around this idea of here's the groundbreaking at Assembly that happened. I think it was it April 30th? I want to say.
the most recent groundbreaking.
The most recent,
Yes.
They've had 72 of them.
I was going to say 5.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Actually,
Joe. The
something-
mayor's going,
something-
Lynch, why can't you leave it alone?
Something you should probably add into the story is that wasn't the first
Yeah.
ceremony.
No, there's been 72
Yeah.
groundbreakings
Yeah.
down there since they started.
Something like that. But,
Yeah.
it was the most celebrated, I would say. There was the most media attention. I mean, you had the Globe there, you had WBUR there. I think
They've all been there before.
Well, it's the one, I think they now have something to show for it. And
Yeah.
that's why it was pretty
Sure,
much more, it had more gravitas to it because the roadways are in, the trees are planted,
Yeah.
infrastructure's in, buildings will now begin to rise.
Yeah.
Let's use gravitas. This one had a lot of gravitas. We're using it as an opportunity to look 15 years back, 98. People start talking, I guess that's 14 years. People start talking, this is
Yeah.
a lot of land that we can earn some revenue on, and we can look 10 years forward or 5 years forward and say, what are the next challenges? And it's it's a very important story to Somerville. There's a lot going on there.
It's an important story, but do you think some of the readers are getting tired of hearing about Assembly Square?
I don't think they've heard about it in the way that we're going to be. I mean, obviously Bill Shelton has done a lot of good work.
Yep.
But I think sometimes there's been this reaction, well, he's just a columnist.
Who, Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is sort of...
Did you say communist?
Columnist.
You got your...
Yeah, but he...
Sorry, Bill.
He sometimes wears a beret, so
Yeah.
he never really,
He would have been great in the 1920s in Paris. That's what I would say.
I think he'd
I
love to hear
I
you
like
say
Bill
that.
Shelton. So let's move on to. So we got a big investigative story on Assembly Square, kind of like this showcasing of what's to come.
Yeah, I don't think of this as the most investigative thing I've done. I think
Okay.
of this as the most. Here's a collaborative. This is what has happened. Somerville, you are going to get an opportunity to read, beginning to end. Not beginning to end because we can't go back to the Ford assembly plant launching, but we can go back to when this became a big thing. Here's what has happened. Here's how it's happened. Here's what it's meant to be. And here's what it's going to become.
Right.
And I think that Tom served technically as my managing editor on this story, and I want to give him disclosure there.
Yeah.
But
Well, there's a lot of history. I mean, obviously, as you know.
Yeah, it's a huge story for the city. I just fear that people are becoming,
there's...
Well, let's move off Assembly for a minute.
Sure.
What's investigative stories that you've had? You got yourself in trouble on a couple of stories you've done.
I have managed to be out of the country when I've been in trouble for stories that I've done. I don't...
You got anything juicy coming up?
Well, before coming up, I mean, there's definitely... I had been working on the fact that Somerville hasn't had a real certified inspectional services head for almost the entire
Over at DPW.
Administration.
Yep.
And there was a big push to pull ISD into the Office of Strategic Planning and
Sure.
Community Development.
Yep.
And there's all
That
this,
actually did move underneath them.
and it
Yeah.
did move underneath them, and you would think that with that, there would also be like, oh, the people who hold this job
Yeah.
as ISD commissioners should be able to pass the state-mandated tests. That hasn't been happening. And without turning it into...
How many have we gone through now? Two?
Two.
Two. So
And-
we're on our third, or we're on
We're,
our
we're on
second?
our
We're on our
second.
second.
We're on
The
our
person
second.
who, oddly enough, the person who preceded the first pick, he's now actually under indictment in Framingham, which
He's
is
on
just sort of...
administrative leave. Yeah, and there's some big offices looking into him.
Yeah.
So that's an aside.
One would think, though, in a city like this, with the major developments that are happening and the building boom, that the administration would think very carefully about who occupies that
Right.
position, because
Right.
that ISD inspector is the guy who sends out all the inspectors.
Right. And
to
he-
make sure that the buildings at Assembly Square or Max Pack or
Right.
any place else or all these new restaurants are up to code.
Right. And so now, we are the ones, instead of the city doing, due diligence on that, it sort of falls on, any journalist, I think. I think any journalist in the city should hopefully want to tackle something like that. And now we look like the jerks who are pointing out people who might not be passing these tests.
But it goes back to the fact that you have the luxury that you can do a lot more investigative analysis as to why, who, what, when, and where,
Yeah.
rather than the dailies or the weeklies that just...
I think our model.
let's face facts. Let's face facts. A lot of our viewers have said to me that I've been too kind to the mayor. I don't think I'm too kind to him, not to his face anyway. But I tend to respect the office very much when I'm on the show. But, we have two newspapers in town.
Yeah.
One kisses the mayor's bum, and the other one tries not to kiss the mayor's bum. So, I kind of look at both newspapers. Who's going to do the investigative reporting about ISD,
Right.
if not the independent magazine that's sitting out there?
I think there's something very traditional about our approach, though, and I've thought about it a little bit, and the media, not to get too high strung here, but the media.
We're already there.
I guess so.
You
Here
both
we are.
of you are.
Here we are.
I
The media
I
was-
wanted to call Holly and say give them both a sedative before they came on.
The
But
media was always supposed to be, here's what pushes back. No matter who's in office, no matter who's there, no matter what's going on, you push back and you make sure everything's in check. And if we're doing that, then I feel very good about what we're doing.
yeah, I think it's always been an unwritten rule of media types that you're not supposed to get too cozy with elected officials. You're
Yeah,
not
I mean,
supposed
that's
to
why
get
Fox
too
News is
cozy.
under investigation right now for what? For having Tony Blair at their daughter's wedding or whatever.
And
Yeah.
I think, if anything, I think there's this perception among certain circles that anytime I write an article, it tends to be like, I remember I was speaking to this Somerville press person, and it was about this firefighter issue, and she was saying, well, there's so many good firefighters, it's just too bad you couldn't write an article about them. And I was saying, well,
Should have turned around and said, why don't you write the nice
right. Well,
article?
why don't you write the nice article? And also, that's not. I don't get up in the morning and say, how can I make someone else feel good? I want to help people understand how their government is working, and that sounds really pompous. I'm gonna turn
Well,
it
I
up.
don't think it's bombers. I think it's a fact where both of you take your profession seriously. You don't just occupy a 9-to-5 job and then when you
Right.
go home say I hate that job. I'm never gonna
Right.
I tend to think that people who are in, especially reporters, if they stay in one position too long, they become stagnant. They become too familiar with their subjects, and their writing becomes bland and uninteresting.
That's why I've had 3 different
There you go.
Somerville jobs.
I knew he was going to
in 4
bite
years.
right on to that one.
That was
I
our
can't.
form.
I can't
I
hold
just
down
went-
any job.
Reeled him right in with that
I'm
one.
wondering who will hire me next.
There you go. There you go. Well, I want to say I am very, very happy for Holly and you guys and Elon that the magazine is making it. And it's making it, for you folks that are out there of the 26,000, have I got that number right? 26,000 circulation?
The number I see, and I haven't counted them, is 34,500.
34,500 delivered someplace.
Yes.
Whether it's to individual homes or it may go to,
Right.
Yeah. So, they're distributing this for free to us, but the advertisers who advertise in Somerville Scout are really the ones who are paying for the production, and they're
Right.
paying your salary,
Right.
et cetera, et
Very
cetera.
great.
So, I'm going to try to parse this very carefully, because I just opened my mouth and said the company I work for advertises in Somerville Scout. When we look at what some of the movements are here in Somerville about, shop local, support your local community, support these, go to Somerville Scouts advertisers and look at them. These are locally homegrown folks, or these are newcomers who have invested in this city, and they're helping us become the community that we are.
Right.
When you read some of the books about what's happened to inner cities, I mean, all you have to do is go up 95 and 93.
Yeah.
Take a look at Lawrence,
Yeah.
or Lowell, or Haverhill, or Fitchburg, or Leominster. Those cities are really struggling.
Yeah.
We should be thankful for a city like Somerville.
Right.
And the only way that we are surviving here is through our local economy.
Yep.
We have some great companies here, whether it's a restaurant or a home goods store or you name it. They're all advertising in Somerville Scout these days.
Yeah, and
And I think it's a vote of support for. And
I think
you know,
it is
I
too,
think,
Tom,
and
yeah.
just for obviously in Scott, there's plenty. I like to think there's a wide variety of coverage. I mean, the next issue we're going to have a rundown of Somerville singles.
yeah, that goes next to the assembly story.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we like to have the like bitter and sweet. And so
Yeah,
there's,
Holly was very disappointed that I took myself out of the running for that one.
So yeah, it's about creating. We want people to care about how their government is run. We also want them to care about, whether a 20-year-old kid on Somerville Ave opens up a coffee shop. We want them to read about that. We want them to read about, who are like 10 of the most eligible people in Somerville.
Yeah.
There's
and the big thing about that is trying to be a magazine that is for everyone, because, let's be frank, a lot of people who live in Somerville maybe don't care that much about how the government is running, but we still want to have something in there that they're going to want to read.
Yeah, I think that's any community, Adam. I mean, it's a good point to make. Any community will always have a certain part of the population that is deeply committed to the community that they live in. Others are, I vote, I pay my taxes, I pay my water bill, I send my kids to public school, so that's the extent of the support.
Sure.
There are other folks who are really just disengaged.
Yeah.
This is a place where they lay their head, and that's the end of it. They park their car, they get a ticket, they lay their head on the pillow. We're going to have to finish up.
I've paid my ticket and laid my
There
head.
you go. We're going to have to finish up, but I want to thank you both.
Thanks
My
for having
guests
us.
tonight have been Tom Nash and Adam Vacarro, co-editors of Somerville Scout. Please support your local businesses and watch for the next edition coming out in...
First week, it'll be there by the 4th of July.
It'll be there by the 4th of July. Speaking of which, if I didn't get to see you this past weekend, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. For Greater Somerville, I'm Joe Lynch. Thanks for watching. See you next week.